several OCD patients are like, will this ever go away?
Any adult that is struck with some type of OCD is, oh my God, this is driving me crazy and ruining my life. And I also can't imagine a life without it.
Yes. What's up, Bossing Up Overcoming OCD listeners? I'm your host, Erin Davis, and today I'm sitting down with guest Kristin Louise Duncombe. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about her book as well as her own personal experience with OCD. This is a must-listen episode, and if you or someone you know is struggling with obsessive compulsive disorder, please send this episode their way. And if you're looking to discover the 5 biggest mistakes that fuel relationship anxiety, I've got a resource for you. Check out my Overthinker's Guide to Love. Link is in the show notes. You can also find it at livebeyonddoubt.com/Overthinker's Guide to Love. This is a free 5-day email course that will give you bonus tips to help you get out of the spiral. Now back to the conversation. Kristin, can you share with the listeners your background and your experience with OCD?
Absolutely. So I'll start with where I am now. I'm a therapist by training. I'm also a life coach and an author. I've really got the career of my dreams. It's not what I thought I was going to do when I was younger. I always thought I wanted to be a talk show host. If I had been able to figure out how to do that, I would have become one with any luck. But I didn't know how to do it. And I feel like by becoming a writer and a therapist, I got to take the things that made me want to be a talk show host, apply them.
Yep.
In my therapy sessions, I do work with a lot of people with obsessions, OCD and related. And I didn't set out with that as a focus in mind, but I found that it's something that I work with very easily because I have my own history going all the way back to
Sure.
early childhood of obsessional behaviors and OCD. To tell you that part of the story, and I know they sometimes are changing their diagnostics. The last time I checked what I would call my OCD behavior as a child, I think they don't actually consider that in the DSM OCD, but I'm going to clump it all together because
Yeah,
there's so
sure.
much left. When I was a kid, I had tics. I was constantly doing weird facial gestures, like with my mouth, or I did this one where I would roll my eyes. And you can imagine when you're like 7 years old and doing that in class, people were so mean to me. But it was, as anyone who's ever had something like that knows, it was beyond me. I could not stop doing it. That came along with another early onset anxiety related disorder, which I was obsessionally in, and that is hypochondria. I also became convinced that I had leukemia. I had heard something about leukemia, but when I was a kid, there was a made for TV movie about a football star named Brian Piccolo who had
Okay.
died from leukemia. And I became convinced that I had leukemia. And then I would think about it obsessively. And then I became
Yeah.
convinced that doing all those ticks would somehow stave it off.
Totally OCD.
And then you'll love this. I also developed a emetophobia. I had serious,
Oh, that one's
yeah,
so challenging. So, emetophobia, just for the listeners' awareness, that's when you have the fear of vomiting.
I was
Yes.
terrified of vomiting.
Sure. I mean, it's
And
quite a violent, terrible experience anyway.
it's just, I had it all. I didn't get any treatment at all. I was born
Right.
in 69. So when all of this was happening to me, it was in the 1970s. In the late 70s, my family, my dad was in the Foreign Service and we moved off to West Africa. Even if my parents had a notion about getting therapy for their 10-year-old child, which they didn't because it was a different era, there wasn't
Right.
really any therapist to be found in the Ivory Coast where we lived.
OCD therapy
Yes.
really progressed
Yes.
truly.
And what I was gonna say is without any support, I did grow out. I stopped having all of those behaviors. Now, I did develop other behaviors later on. And what I say now is, as an adult, I have never been controlled by OCD the way I really was for a while there as a child. But
Right.
I do feel the presence of certain funny little behaviors and obsessions or compulsions that come go. And what I wanted to say about in terms of when I'm working with clients and how to treat it, because this is something I use on myself all the time, I tend to take a behavioral approach to dealing with OCD
Yes.
stuff. And I learned this from, do you know the work of David Burns? He wrote Feeling Good Manual,
Heard of
and
him.
that's a great resource. He wrote When Panic Attacks, a Feeling Good handbook, and he's also got a really good podcast called the Feeling Good Podcast. They talk a lot about OCD. But one of the ways he deals with anxiety, he's a CBT therapist, is to also look for the hidden meaning. And I
Yes.
don't ever want to get psychoanalytic about OCD stuff because I do think more than anything, I think it's brain driven, not deep rooted experience.
So, yeah.
The reason I'm bringing this up is that when I find myself in this day and age doing something OCD ish, sometimes that happens first. And then I'm like, oh, okay, wait, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Sometimes I'll do this weird thing where I'll put my glasses on my head and then I'll be like, oh, I did that wrong. So I'll do it again.
Yes. OCD patients are like, will this ever go away? Have you experienced that question? And what's been your life experience around that?
That question is such an understandable question because, especially in families where, the parents might be wondering, is this ever going to go away?
Yes.
But often the adolescent is also wondering, is this ever going to go away? Or any adult that is struck with some type of OCD is, oh my God, is this ever going to go away? This is driving me crazy and ruining my life. And I also can't imagine a life without it because of the way it helps me.
Yes.
To tell people when that question comes up, one of the things that would be useful is to try to do something paradoxical and stop making it try to go away. To start with a place of acceptance, like this may not go away, and I can live with this because I know what it is.
I
And
love that.
yeah, and making that shift often, and this is what I end up talking about so often with clients in my practices, is that when you accept something and even invite it in, it makes the involuntary, which is the obsession, become voluntary. So, one of the techniques I use with people, depending on what the obsessional behavior is, to be one step ahead of it. And before the obsession occurs, just schedule some time to force yourself to obsess. Will this ever go away? Because there is another way I like to answer that question. And that is, and I'd love to hear if you agree with this. I always say, absolutely, it will go away. And then it will probably come back because that's how things work. Not just with OCD, but with depression, with hard times, with good times. They come, they go, they come, they go. And if you can treat that as part of your life experience and not let it be disproportionate big. That's also part of acceptance.
Yes.
What's your experience? Do you feel like OCD comes and goes, or what do you think?
Yes. So, first of all, Kristen, I love your perspective of good times and bad times. They come and go.
Yeah.
For OCD, I truly believe it can go into remission.
Yeah.
And now, does that mean a forever remission? No. Like
Yes.
normally, when I'm talking to a client in their graduation appointment, there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse, especially for these adolescent clients. They are going to go through so much change and development in their life, experience so many new things that inevitably that OCD is going to try to hook in and
Yeah.
grab. If I'm working with a 12-year-old, maybe they're having second guessing and obsessions around their menstrual cycle. Then once they start dating, then it's their sexuality. And
Yeah.
then once they're in a committed relationship, then it's how do I know they're the one? I remind them that all these techniques you're learning now, whether it's for your religious OCD or contamination, these techniques all work across all of those themes. So I
Mhm.
try to give them hope, like, that's the good news. You know what to do, but
Yes.
be aware that OCD is sneaky.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I know we jumped right into the conversations.
And then it's of no consequence. I don't spend 3 hours a day. But when I do that, I'm like, oh, what's bothering you? Why are you doing this?
Do you notice if your life is having an increased amount of stress at that time?
Yeah. And so I always find it interesting. And that's what I like to try to help people also do is use their OCD to befriend it that way. If you're doing something like that, let's try to get a grip so that it doesn't take over. It's information. What do you think is driving that right now that you are feeling the need to do that repetition, whatever the thing is?
Looking for what's the function of this behavior?
Yes. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that word. That is a really good word. What's the function of it? Because often, sometimes it's hard to know actually, but that's another thing that I think is useful when you're in the role of the therapist is to tell people you can take an educated guess. You don't have to know for sure if this or that is the function. Maybe there's a variety of things that could be an appropriate answer to that question. What is the function? And you don't have to get perfectionistic, more OCD
My
type.
goodness, right?
Yeah, finding the perfect answer because it's not
Yes.
all or nothing. There's going to be a range here. And even in your own life, you might keep having the same obsession, but the meaning ascribed to it will probably fluctuate. And just have self awareness about it. Don't try to control your knowledge base about yourself. But of course, it's so easy to say that. And it's so hard when you're at the beginning of dealing
Right.
with your own OCD.
Well, and the folks who are dealing with pedophilic OCD or harm OCD, suicidal OCD, like some of those really taboo
Yeah.
topic, they
Yeah.
have a hard time being with themselves. How could I fathom these thoughts to begin with?
Yes. And I will tell you that is something that I have never had to deal with myself. And it's not to stigmatize it, just transparency. I feel like it would be for me a conflict of interest because when I said earlier that I grew out of my OCD behavior, I developed other behaviors. At the moment that I grew out of various behaviors that I described, my family moved to West Africa. At
Oh,
that
wow.
time, my path crossed with a serial pedophile who was high ranking member of the US State Department. It was an American diplomat. And for 2 years, he sexually abused me.
Oh,
And when the whole story came out, the State Department protected him and threw all of the victims
oh,
and our families under the bus. So that's what I
no.
write about in my most recent book. I talk about the intersection between the OCD that I started with as a child, which I think made me vulnerable to this man's attentions because I was the quote unquote weird kid that other kids were mean to. So when this guy started paying a lot
Giving you attention.
of
Mhm.
yeah, I just think I was really vulnerable. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that once all of that drama happened and the cover up happened at the level of the State Department protecting the pedophile and all of that,
Awful.
I developed other anxiety driven behaviors, which I always attributed to the abuse history. You can't do a control study on yourself. I mean, it's all already happened. But I wonder, for example, I developed bulimia when I was a teenager. I was bulimic for many years.
Yes.
I also developed binge drinking and chain
Mhm.
smoking. And people don't really think of any of those things like bulimia, binge drinking, chain smoking. People don't really think of that as OCD. And it's not characterized as OCD. But if you are someone that has experienced OCD and then you're
Yes.
someone who's experienced addictive behaviors, ooh,
Yes.
it's very adjacent and parallel.
Oh, yeah. That's it keeps you in that comfort zone,
Yes.
because
And
again, the function of the behavior is to keep you comfortable.
yes, exactly. You get that surge of discomfort for whatever reason. And then
Yeah.
with bulimia, you attend to it with food, and then you attend to the overeating with the purge. And then with cigarettes, you
Yes.
feel anxiety, so you smoke a cigarette, the nicotine quells that. It's just on and on.
Whole cycle.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Kristen, through everything that you have been through, you had the emetophobia, which then led to bulimia. It seems
Yes.
such like night and day
Yeah, isn't it?
difference. And emetophobia in the OCD community is one of the hardest like cycles to overcome.
Yeah.
What worked for you?
For the emetophobia,
Yes.
I mean, that that's one of those things that I don't know if I can answer. I'm gonna end up having to answer what helps me work effectively with clients, because for myself, as a young person with emetophobia, nothing really worked. I just
Right.
stopped feeling that way after
Okay.
an intensive year of extreme vomit fears, and that affected my eating. I was terrified. There was
Yeah.
only certain food. I started stealing Rolaids. I was 8, by the way. I was like 8 years old when this was happening.
Oh,
My parents always had Rolaids. Do they even make Rolaids anymore? I think it's like Tums. Do you know what Rolaids?
I remember them. Yeah.
Okay, so my parents always had, and they tasted like mint. They always
Yes.
had Rolaids in their medicine cabinet. Would sneak in and get like a little handful of Rolaids, because I had this magical thinking that Rolaids are preventing me from having leukemia. And if I can prevent the leukemia, then I won't throw up. But nothing helped me. I found my little coping mechanisms, but
Yes.
I didn't get any official help for that.
That's true because there wasn't help available.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now going back to this premise of you're being the therapist you wish you had, you help your clients with emetophobia.
So the clients that I work with that have emetophobia, there's a couple of things, and I'm going to just throw them out there as they're popping into my head, not in particular protocol order. Because I do
Okay.
believe, as Irving Yalom says, you have to create a different therapy for everyone. So we figure out,
Agreed.
start where the person is. But overall, I definitely take a deep dive into figuring out what the function is. And I'm thinking of someone that I still work with, actually. I've been seeing her on and off for a couple of years, and we've made a lot of progress. Whenever the emetophobia comes up, now she will say to me, ah, I'm having that fear of life again. Because when we first started working together, she likened throwing and going to, and she was terrified of dying. Then when we talked about what is dying,
Right?
what are you envisioning? There was nothing about dying. It was like, wait, all those things you're describing, that's part of being alive, being uncomfortable, being
Ah,
afraid, being grossed out, being alone. Actually, when you're dead, I don't think you're going to feel any of that, because you're just going to be dead. Dead is like the grace from after it. You're afraid of life. And that
very.
really landed for her. So one is the hidden meaning / function. But then the other thing that I really believe in is contracting with people. And this isn't just for emetophobia. This is for dealing with any sort of anxiety driven behavior. Do you really want to work on this? Because if you don't really want to work on this, let's not waste our time. But if you really want to
Yes.
try to get out of this, let's agree that you will be willing to do things, and it can be baby steps, but to make yourself uncomfortable, to try. And then I like to try to do exposure. Only once in my therapy practice have I ever done exposure therapy, whereby, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like where you can mix up flour and eggs and stuff and try to create fake vomit.
I'm
Yeah,
about to do it soon.
I knew it. The person that I did that with, this was a
Yes.
few years Though they really wanted to do that. But to me, and I think I'm just too much of a concrete thinker, it was like, okay, we can do this, but we both know this is not throw up. And it doesn't have some of those sensory things that people with emetophobia are so afraid of, the smell or the
Right.
coming out of your
Now,
mouth.
I've never asked anyone to take some of the medicine that causes vomiting.
I've never done that either, I think is what it's called or something like that.
I don't think that should be part of treatment. I just
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't volunteer myself nor a family member to throw up.
I wouldn't try to stop someone from throwing up, but I don't think I would propose it because I would also not enjoy being there. I wouldn't
Yes.
really want to go through that together.
We've done water in the mouth and spitting it into the toilet. I'm good
Okay.
with that.
Okay.
To simulate as
Have you
far
ever
as
done
like,
throwing up noises?
oh,
That's one that you can do. I find in terms of exposures, what I use more frequently are ones that are right in front of you, don't require any organization. Like force yourself to eat your dinner. You are
yes.
convinced that your dinner is going to lead to food poisoning and then you're going to throw up. But we know from all the other times you thought that, and then you did eat it and you didn't throw up, that this is the fear of life.
Love it.
So let's eat the dinner. Remember, you agreed that let's try and see what happens. I try to push for exposures like
The normal day today. Yeah. What is the title of your book and where can we find it?
the title of my book is Object, a Memoir. The reason I call it Object is it's about having been turned into the object of this middle-aged pedophile's, proclivities. The recovery process was for me becoming the subject of my own life versus feeling constantly and obsessively like I was the object of other people's desire. You can order it through any bookstore. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll be sure to include that in the show notes and any words of wisdom or pieces of advice that you'd like to share with the listeners.
There's so many things, but as someone who's now mid-aged and wise enough, happy enough in spite of all the problems that I've had in my life, it's just to always keep in mind that you can have a problem such as OCD and still carry on. You can be afraid that you're going to get germs from touching that doorknob and still touch it.
Yes.
One thing doesn't have to lead to the other, but that is a switch that needs to be made. The other advice is seek help and
Right.
trust the help of others.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kristen. This was very enlightening. Really
Thank
loved
you
your
for having me.
story.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you so much. It was great to meet you. I'll look forward to staying in touch.